Hello, my name is Puneet Jain and today I am presenting our work Can I Use My Mouth to Navigate in VR? Integrating mouth gestures in XR within for disabled artists through Criptastic Hacking, co-authored with my PhD supervisor Dr. Chris Salter. In the recent years, we are witnessing a significant drop in the prices of XR headsets, making it affordable for consumers, developers, and artistic communities. For example, many disabled artists have started exploring XR technologies for creative expression and to share disability cultures, inviting audience to step into the extraordinary world of visually impaired and neurodivergent communities through immersive experiences. However, the use of handheld controllers or hands to interact with these devices pose significant barriers to people with physical disabilities. This implicit design template in XR is what Gerling and Spiel have called a corporeal standard, that is, the assumption that the target user is indeed non-disabled. This standard does restrict disabled artists and activists from integrating XR devices into their artistic practices. HCI researchers have thus expanded their focus on creating accessible XR solutions for varied disabilities. Solutions have also been proposed for people who have limited body movements or who are using wheelchairs. But there is no research or little research for people with severe motor disabilities, such as people with almost no upper and lower body movements. This work highlights and reveals these issues through a case study centered on an XR artwork. Cripsensorama, co-created by an interable team of two disabled artists, Eric Derozier and Christian Bayerlein, and I as the first author, Puneet Jain. As a part of our research and contribution, firstly we share the accessibility challenges faced by the two disabled artists in using XR technologies. Secondly, we introduced the methodology of cryptastic hacking, which allowed us to hack and modify XR technologies to make them accessible for the artist. As an example, we demonstrate the hacking of camera-based interfaces, which led to the generation of two sets of mouth gestures as an interaction modality in XR, enabling the artist to use their cheeks, lips, and tongue movements to interact and navigate in XR. Lastly, we share our insights learned during the design process with the HA community. To give a brief context, Eric Derozier and Christian Bayerlein are artists living in Canada and Germany respectively. I will now briefly describe their disabilities and artistic practices, highlighting how their unique experiences enabled us to develop mouth gestures as an interaction modality in XR. Eric Derozier is a painter who is in his mid-50s and has muscular dystrophy. However, living with quadriplegia, he cannot use his hands and fingers to paint. Not able to paint using his hands doesn't restrict him. He uses a mouth control joystick which enables him to use his chin, jaw, and lip movements to control a robotic arm in space. Further attaching a paintbrush to the jaws of the robotic arm, he uses an intricate combination of mouth control gestures, dipping the brush into the paint and applies strokes to the canvas. Doing this for many years, Eric has thus developed a unique dexterity in mouth movements to express his artistic creativity. And this is the result. I here share four of Eric's favorite painted paintings depicting his continuous passion to paint till date. Eric thus wanted to expand the visibility of his mouth painted paintings to a broader audience through the medium of XR. At the same time, he also wanted the audience to embody the mouth gestures he uses to paint. This led to the development of a set of mouth gestures for Eric to move in VR and the creation of artwork which we call Cripsensorama Eric's paintings. Christian Bayerlein, on the other hand, is a hacker and maker and uses technology as a tool for activism around disability. He lives with spinal muscular atrophy, due to which he has almost no movements in the upper and the lower part of his body. However, Christian loves to travel around the world in his wheelchair, which is driven using a joystick, which he has self-hacked using a straw, enabling him to control it entirely with his mouth. Christian has previously used XR headsets integrated with brain-computer interfaces and eye tracking. But when we first met, he asked, "Can I use my mouth to navigate in VR?" This motivated the development of another set of mouth gestures for Christian Bayerlein to interact in XR. And finally, in the creation of second version of the XR artwork, Cripsensorama Christian's Coffee, where coffee cup, straws, and mouth became the key elements of interaction and storytelling in XR. Eric and Christian's lived experiences of disability encouraged them to hack and tinker with their everyday environment, tools, as well as technologies. This is what disability scholar Remy Orgo calls cryptastic hacking. It is a form of DIY, do-it-yourself grassroots problem solving, where disabled individuals creatively adapt, hack, or reconfigure technologies to fit their unique needs and experiences. This kind of methodology positions disabled people and artists as experts and designers of their everyday life, enabling us as HCA researchers to acknowledge and learn from crypt wisdom, resources, and skills. To create the mouth gesture interface for Eric and Christian, we employed an iterative design approach informed by the principles of cryptastic hacking. I now will describe the two prototypes we developed for Eric and Christian to navigate and interact in XR. For prototype 1, we used an RGB camera and an open source facial landmark detection algorithm from MediaPipe. which detects 478 3D coordinates on the face. By performing basic statistics, we were able to detect if the user's mouth is closed or open. Further sending this data over OSC to the Unity game engine, we would then trigger rotation of virtual camera in VR. This is extremely helpful for Eric and Christian who cannot rotate their heads to have a 360-degree point of view in VR. But we also found out that if one's face is occluded, such as by VR headsets, most facial detection algorithms cannot detect the face, and hence the mouth. Instead of finding another machine learning algorithm that works with occluded faces, the team decided to rather confuse the existing one. To make it work, we printed a few paper masks of faces of famous celebrities, for example Angelina Jolie's, and pasted them on the MetaQuest headsets so that it could track the faces of the artist. This hack, although not perfect, tracked the occluded face and hence the mouth, enabling the artist to rotate the virtual camera in VR using mouth movements. However, there were certain limitations of this interface. The camera needed to remain stationary to keep tracking the artist's faces, restricting their ability to move their wheelchairs freely, which would cause them to slip out of the camera's viewpoint. Moreover, an RGB camera didn't work in low lighting conditions, the aesthetic we wanted to pursue for the XR artwork. For the second prototype, we adopted a lip and face tracker sold by HTC Vive. The device was, however, not sold for accessibility concerns, but was advertised by HTC to play massive multiplayer games such as Neos VR to mirror the user's mouth movements onto their avatar's face while communicating with others in social VR platforms. On purchasing the device, we discovered that the internal AI algorithm classified 37 mouth gestures to facilitate precise replication of mouth movements in XR. The team decided to adapt this tracker for use with MetaQuest 2 and later with MetaQuest 3 headsets. I want to emphasize on the fact that HTC Vive only provided instructions for integrating the tracker with their own XR headsets. Thus, the team had to find ways to configure it with the Quest headsets by creating customized 3D printed mounts as shown here. From the 37 gestures, Eric used the 6 gestures as shown here to move in VR. For example, he used the tongue out gesture to move forward, he pout his mouth to move backward, and he used the puffing of the cheeks to rotate in VR. The same list of gestures were suggested to Christian. While Christian preferred Eric's choice of gestures, he also decided to use them as an interaction modality, such as to control pass-through opacity. This feature was later adapted in Cripsensorama Christian's Coffee to produce an aesthetic effect. Now I will present the two XR artworks co-created with and for Eric de Rouzier and Christian Bayerlein. The first version of the artwork was developed with and for Eric de Rouzier. Since Eric's disability does not allow him to travel outside his hometown, Montreal, Canada, we created a VR art gallery showcasing his paintings, in which people navigate and move using their mouth gestures. Similar to how Eric uses VR or he creates his paintings using his mouth. The second artwork, Cripsensorama, Christian's Coffee, was recently exhibited at the Ars Electronica Festival for Art, Technology and Society in Linz, Austria. It was a two-person experience in which visitors used multiple mouth gestures to move and navigate in virtual reality, but also activate mixed reality by opening their mouth, enabling them to tangibly experience Christian's coffee cup and straws, hence showcasing an unconventional interaction modality in XR to common public through art. We now share three themes which emerged during our design process and can henceforth encourage inclusive, accessible XR design. For instance, by drawing on lived experiences, we could go beyond the hand-based interactions in XR. Criptastic hacking encouraged us to follow an improvisational design approach, allowing us to adapt prototypes by embracing users' creativity. This experience highlights that in designing solutions for disabled communities, specifically when the designers are non-disabled, embracing the hacks and tinkering skills of the disabled users and artists can offer more inclusivity. Our collaboration in an interable team with overlapping disabilities allowed us to iteratively adapt our prototypes, refining the system based on the lived experiences of both the artists. We thus encourage everyone to read our paper for further intakes. Thank you.